Okay, everyone. Hopefully, um, you've been practicing since the last time I've put up a video. I can't tell exactly when I put videos because I work a very funny roster at the airport. But either way, here we are again, and we're going into Glenn Vilppu's drawing manual again. One of the books that I recommend to beginners. It's very easy to follow and it's very straightforward. And in case you've been following the last few weeks, we are up to the section 5 of his basic figure drawing course. And what he goes into here is the importance of ellipses and cylinders. So an ellipse simply is a shape like this, if you can see the screen, like a circle on an angle. If you had a flat circle and you move it away from you or towards you, the distance between the edge of the circle will get reduced because you're looking at it in perspective. We went into that a little bit last week. And now it's good to get into the habit of practicing these ellipses, but also when you're connecting them, we're creating a cylinder. And why do we want to draw a cylinder? Well, we can represent things like limbs with cylinders. So if you've got the upper arm and then you've got the lower arm, you'd have something like this, a tapered cylinder. And remember, we try to get into the habit of drawing through these forms. So if you connected these two bits, it would make a kind of condensing upper arm. And the point of the cylinder as well is to try and, instead of having a flat shape like that to represent a limb, the cylinder and practicing these ellipses give the object form. So this looks flat, and this one, we've got the end here and we can see the bottom of it here, and it looks like it's got a bit of dimension, right? Now, what I'll do is I'll go through a few examples. We won't make this one too long. It's a very basic, I think he's only got like a couple of pages of explaining what the ellipses are, but he's got lots of examples. So I'll go through a few examples now to just show how we can use the ellipses in our figure drawing. So the first example, I saved this. It's good to see how even the Renaissance, like this one's by Da Vinci, you can see how he has cross-contoured that whole leg. And what you've got here is these mini cylinders. And what he was doing was he was being really meticulous with every section or cross section of the lower leg and the upper leg, even defining where muscles laid in the cross section. And that's pretty in depth. I don't think you'll need to go into that for now, but you can see how dedicated these guys were to in the old days to learning every aspect of the figure. And I think Da Vinci or Michelangelo would have had access to actual dead bodies, which was illegal, but I think he probably paid off some people to be able to go in and inspect the corpses to help him in his artistic ventures. But luckily we don't have to do that today. He's done the hard work for us. And you can see with this example, a good example of how you can use ellipses. We're not using these mini ellipses. We're going to use the larger ellipse to represent the upper leg and the lower leg. Okay, so let's go on to an example here that I promised you. Okay, so we've got this simple figure, and for an exercise for now, for everyone, is to this. He doesn't mention this, but I've heard other instructors talk about trying to represent the whole figure with just ellipsoid shapes. So I'm going down this figure, I'm going through the upper body, and I'm trying to copy. I'm not doing such a good job, but I want to copy the orientation. What I mean is, see how this rib cage sort of leans back? I should be representing that in what I'm doing here. Hopefully you can understand. I'll make it easier to understand now. See the buttocks there? Now I'm going to represent ellipses showing that. And then down the leg, ellipses. And this really trains your mind to think of the 2D surface that you're looking at as a 3D surface. Okay, so the arm as ellipses, and then down to the lower part of that limb. Okay, now do you understand the point of this exercise? Is to kind of push your brain into thinking of the form rather than just copying outlines or contouring. Okay, so try that exercise. Maybe I'll try it on this next example here. Let me delete this. Okay, I'm getting a bit quicker now. That's good. Okay, this example. I'll start with the rib cage. So an ellipse, and just keep on going. Doesn't have to be exact. Remember, this bottom part here is kind of facing us, and then the limb, we've got his right leg going to the knee, and then the lower leg. And see, this is more of it's not about preciseness. I keep saying that for this exercise. Even if I wanted to, I'll add like a placeholder there and just use the ellipses to go and follow the flow of that upper arm. Now, do you understand what I'm doing here? Just keep on doing that. The back arm there, the ellipses, and be mindful. So if you've got the upper arm like that, we would be able to see, probably if we could look through that upper arm, we'd see the bottom part of the cylinder. What I mean is that this cylinder or the upper arm is facing away from us. It's falling away. That lower arm, I probably could see the bottom of that cylinder here. Okay, so be mindful, follow those the form lines of the shape. And that's one exercise you can practice if you go to life drawing or just from reference. Just practice feeling around the form of the figure around it. Just do a few of these just to get into the habit of thinking of the figure as a form. Now, the next example I'll show you here, I'll erase what I've got on the screen. Whoops. I can't erase it. Great. Delete. Why is it not getting rid of that balloon? Let's see if I can trash it. Yep. Okay, so what we're up to is, we'll go through another example. Now, shall I go through now? What we'll do, we'll combine what we've learned in the past lessons. So the upper torso, I'm going to focus on that. You can use your egg, or you can use the box. Smooth it over a little bit. I couldn't do that. Great. Let's go to here. Okay, I'll try again. Sorry, guys. So that's the egg shape that we learned about to represent a rib cage, or if you can see better using a rectangle, go for it. And remember the center guidelines, form lines. Now, this bottom section of his pubis, his crotch area, you can represent. I like to use a rectangle, like a shoebox. I'll use it here as well. Okay, so we connect the upper section to the lower section, and I feel that this egg shape is in front of this boxy shape. We'll do it here again. Now, the point of this is to show that you can anchor your limbs on this torso, but you can, whatever suits you, use either the egg shape or a boxy shape. I mean, you can use two eggs if you like. Use an egg to represent that bottom section. So just practice and see what works for you. Now we'll add the limbs. I'll add the legs first. So if I was to add this leg here, his left leg, I need a place to where the leg comes out from. So I'm going to put a base ellipse, and this is where the knee, I'm looking here, where I believe the knee would just stops there, and I'm going to connect that up and put my form lines. So you can see I'm working around here. The lower part of that leg, I'll put in like maybe a placeholder for the ellipse, or the sphere that we're gonna, not the sphere, the column, the cylinder. Geez, I didn't remember that. I'm gonna use a tapered column. Okay. And then I'll just place his feet, or his foot here, and I'll represent that as like a kind of wedge, and I'll even give that some form. Get into the habit of those form lines. Now his other leg, it's getting a bit messy, but you have to learn to see through the forms. So I've got his leg like this here, and then his crotch, I should have made this a lot bigger because I made the leg quite large. So this area here, I'm going to get this leg coming out of there. Okay. I'll continue it over here. So let's say we've got what we're looking at is his pubic area. And if he's wearing underpants, they'd fit on him like that. And the reason I use this underpant analogy is because you can see where the leg comes out from. So I'll get rid of this little example here. Why can't I? Look, I just can't figure it out. Okay, I'll try again. I'll try that again. Let's see, and delete. There we go. Wonder why that worked. Okay, now, so the underpant analogy, his leg would come out of the underpants like so. Okay, and the leg, for me, it feels like it's got this form about it. A lot of this is intuition and using your judgment, spatial judgment, I'm guessing, to figure out what's going on. The thing you do with figure drawing, it's a lot of problem solving. So it's not just copying, we're solving problems. That's what makes it fun and engaging. So the lower leg, if I was to do contours, it would feel like that. And I would see a little bit of the base there and put in the wedge to represent the foot. Okay. Now let's try the upper arm, the one that's close to us here. So I use that analogy of underpants here. Maybe up here you could use a vest analogy. And the sockets that fit on the rib cage would look like so. Now, adding the placeholder of the angle of the upper arm, and then I'm creating a cylinder, like so. Okay. And then you do the same for the lower arm. So if you're struggling to figure out, which angle or where should I place it, just have a look. You can work from the wrist. I usually look for, if I'm confused, I'm not starting from the elbow. I'll go to another spot and use that as a placeholder. And then I'll use my cylinder for that lower arm. And it would connect like so. Okay, and again, we'll just represent the palm of the hand, add on some thumbs, and make it look sort of like a glove. The head, you can practice using the cylinder to represent the head. So you can see he's under his chin. So you'd be looking at the bottom of the cylinder there, like so. And that's the eye line. The neck would be fitting into our rib cage. And that's a crude version of what we're looking at. Let's do another example. Okay, let me erase this. I hope I don't have trouble with it again. Delete. Yep, it worked. Okay, we've done that one. Let's get on to this one. You can play with using a cylinder just to represent all the aspects of the figure. So I'll use one big bendy cylinder to represent the whole torso from the ribs down to the crotch. Okay, and now you'll see this cylinder kind of looks like what we were playing with a few weeks ago with the beam structure. Okay, so that's the torso. I'll start with the bottom again. Let's give it underpants. And where the holes of the underpants, you'd have the legs coming out from. So the knee, we're looking at it foreshortened. So this cylinder appears very squat and short. Now I'll use the placeholder for the lower leg. It's wider up here and narrower down there. So get the narrow part and the wider bit of the cylinder and connect them. And then just quickly representing that foot, the other side. So it's you have to try and be pretty clever at finding where the original placeholders are. So these underpants, the whole of the other side of that underpant is around there. And if I look at this lower leg, it kind of looks to me like it's got this sort of form. And then it goes back. Now we have the lower leg. Okay. And I'm going to connect that to the, I remember about overlapping. So we've got this front part of, well, his lower leg is in front of that upper leg. So you can emphasize that here with this overlap. You see? Now onto the upper section. Now just for fun, I'll start with the upper arm. So the lower arm, the forearm, and the cylinder is tapered again because it's going to a skinny forearm. If I was to put a vest on our rib cage, the whole of the arm socket and out would be coming the cylinder of the upper arm. Okay. And then now for this one, I'm just gonna let's try doing a big long cylinder. Okay. And it stops on the knee. And from the knee comes these palm and the hand. And then just to keep on going with cylinders, the top of the head I'm seeing. And that's our figure there, represented in cylinders and ellipses, and he's sitting down. It's also a good habit to place the figure on something. Well, not on, if it's standing, it's good to have if you've got a figure like this, just doing some sort of pose, I don't know. Like Michael Jackson bending forward. I tend to try and get in the habit of putting it in a environment. And the environment doesn't have to be complex. I just like to put maybe a framework and a ground and also a shadow. Just so you're not just having one flat, I mean, we're giving it form, but we want to give it an environment. We want to push the fact that it's the illusion of 3D. It's in an environment of some sort, not just a 2D environment. Okay. I think I've got one more example, and you guys can practice on your own, but I think we're pushing home the point about how important it is to use or get good at being able to draw cylinders. How do I get up here? Move. No. Okay. Still not the best at this. Delete. Yep, done. Okay, this one. Make it a bit bigger for you to see. I think this is by John Singer Sargent. And he was a great portrait painter, he's a big inspiration to many oil painters. Very highly sought after in the old days. He would have made a lot of money from his venture. So yeah, look him up, John Singer Sargent. I love his figure drawings. They're very classical. Now, let's go through a representing everything using cylinders again, just so we get just to really push home the point of being able to use a cylinder to represent the human body. And look, practice this, but if you feel you're better at using the two separate shapes, I'd prefer to use two separate shapes, but you have to figure out what works best for you. You can use the egg and the cube. You can use an egg and an egg if you like. Or you can use a cube and another cube for the lower portion of the cubic crotch area. Okay, but for this lesson, we're focusing on ellipses, so let's do that. I'm filling the form here. Now I'm going down to the leg, creating the upper leg of one side and the upper leg of the other side. I forgot I should have added the underpants, and that's where the cylinders are coming out from. You see how I put like a bendy bow that way instead of this way? Do you see? This is what we do when we're practicing gestures to get the flow of what you're drawing. So if I was to, I feel the lower leg has like a gestural shape like that. If I was to do it like this, I don't feel it going like this, but it just doesn't look right. You see that there? Now, if I go by my intuition and what I feel the gesture is doing, I add to that my cylinder, and just a small triangle for the foot, and you instantly see how it flows much better into the top top part of the leg. So you can use the gesture of that bottom leg, and then we can add our cylinder. And I feel this cylinder, I would be able to see a bit of that top portion. Okay. His arm sockets. So his arm is if we've got sockets there, I feel he's trying to pull away that upper part of his arm. Okay. And then the wrist on the forearm would be about there, and the cylinder for the forearm would end about there. And he's got his hand. Same for here. This socket, if we look through that shape See, what I mean is it's behind all this mass of the rib cage. If we were to look through his arm socket would be there, cylinder of the upper arm, and then I'll look for that wrist there. It's going back into the upper arm, create the cylinder, and look how it's in front of the upper arm, that forearm. I'm going to push that line just to emphasize that. I'll push it here also because it's in front of that upper arm. Represent the hand there. Now, if I look through this torso, and I'm doing this line at the back to try and figure out where the spine would lie if I were to look through to the back of this ellipse, and then outward, that would come his neck. Now I'm going to fit the cylinder of his head on top of that. And that's all we're doing for now. We're not going into minute details. We are simplifying. The whole point of these first few weeks of what we're doing is just to simplify the figure, so we have a foundation to be able to put our details. Okay, so we want to be experts at simplifying in the beginning, and then later when we study things like anatomy, we can interlock the parts using little nuances in anatomy to make it even more believable. But already this is believable. If you were to focus, as I see some people do, just on outlines, so I'm going from the head down the arm, it becomes a little disproportionate, and also there's not as much rhythm or flow as what we've been practicing. It's nice and quirky, like people can use it as style, even though I like to do it sometimes, but for the sake of learning the basics and fundamentals, it's good to start with using basic shapes to get a grasp of the human figure, and then later on you can venture it to your heart's content. But for now, just follow these simple steps. What do we go through? So we went through representing the whole figure with elliptical spiral shapes, but you also kept in mind that of the angle and the orientation of these ellipses. So they're not always just straight like that. They can be on an angle coming towards us or whatever. What I mean, I'll just go through it again, is if I've got, let's look at an example before. So let's see another one. Okay, let's just work with this one. So if you're looking at this lower leg, you can represent it because with this, it's very, very flat sort of ellipse, but you can sort of push it as well. We're not copying the figure exactly. We can adjust it to give it a bit of dynamics. So I can adjust that lower leg. We're looking at his right leg. So I would see a bit of the bottom of that ellipse. This upper leg, I'm going to push the fact that the ankle is further away and the top part of the leg is slightly closer to us. leaning towards us. So the top of his leg up here, we can see that area. Okay. So I'll leave you to that. I try to keep it short. What is it? 35 minutes. That's pretty short compared to the other videos I've done in the past. So hopefully you don't get too bored, and it's giving you a guide for what to practice next in your pursuits on being able to draw the figure, and especially training to draw the figure from imagination. You practice this enough times, you'll get into you're pretty much ingrained in your brain the structure of the human body without having to reference it. But for now, to stick to this, what we're doing is we're going to, for homework, just look at references, go to life drawing, and practice the torso as an egg or a box, and then connecting that torso together, simply adding arm sockets and underpants, and then using cylinders to represent the limbs. Okay? So hopefully that's straightforward for you enough. And if you've got any questions, always ask me in the comments. Hopefully my videos can be a bit more exciting in the future. I don't know, put some fancy backgrounds, but for now, I just want to get this information out to you so you can go and practice and get better with practice. So I'll see you in the next tutorial, hopefully not too long away. Take care.